A 7-year-old girl collapses outside a billionaire's mansion. With trembling lips and frozen fingers, she whispers, "Sir, my mama didn't come home last night." Those 7 words shatter the billionaire's world. He steps into a storm he never planned to enter. A journey that will expose a truth he's been blind to and lead him to the 2 people who will change his life forever. The storm arrived without warning. Seattle hadn't seen a blizzard like this in decades. Harsh, white, and unforgiving. And in the middle of that icy chaos walked a 7-year-old girl, Lily. Her tiny frame was wrapped in a faded pink jacket, patches worn thin, snow clinging to every thread. Her boots, too big, too soaked, too old, squished miserably with every step. Inside her backpack, the ear of her stuffed rabbit peeked out, the only warm thing she owned. But Lily didn't cry. She just kept walking because Mama always said not to stop when things get scary. And last night had been the scariest of all. Her mom, Grace, who never missed a promise, never missed a night, didn't come home, and no called, and no message, and footsteps at the door. Just silence. Before leaving for a night shift, Grace had knelt by Lily and whispered, "If you're ever in trouble, go to the big building on the hill. Someone there will help you." So Lily followed the only compass she had. Those words, that building. Her breath came out in tiny clouds as she pushed forward, fighting the wind that shoved her back. Her cheeks burned red. Her fingers stung. And still, she walked by the time she reached the iron gates of the mansion on the hill. The largest home she had ever seen. Her legs trembled. Lights glowed behind tall windows. Warmth lived somewhere in there, someone who could help. Lily lifted her hand to knock, but the world tilted, spun, blurred, and she collapsed. Moments later, the gates opened and a tall man stepped out, bundled in a dark coat, surprise flashing across his face. Daniel Rivers, at 41, Seattle's most private billionaire, a man whose life was built on logic, discipline, and a heart he believed had shut itself long ago. He knelt beside the tiny figure in the snow. Hey, sweetheart, can you hear me?" Lily's eyelashes fluttered. Her voice barely existed, but she managed 5 words that sliced through the cold and straight into his chest. "Sir, my mom didn't come home." Daniel froze. And in that single moment, the billionaire who thought nothing could shake him felt his world shift. He lifted Lily carefully into his arms and carried her inside, unaware that this frightened, shivering child was about to lead him into a story he never expected, a story that would change both of their lives forever. Warmth filled Daniel's mansion, but Lily sat on the edge of the velvet sofa, shivering in fear rather than cold. Her little hands clutched the stuffed rabbit from her backpack as if squeezing it tighter could bring her mother back. Daniel knelt in front of her, placing a blanket gently around her shoulders. "Lily," he said softly, "we're going to find her mom. I promise." His own voice surprised him, steady, protective, something he hadn't felt in years. The little girl nodded, though her lower lip trembled. She looked so small in such a big room. Daniel stood and grabbed his phone, and then began the search. Every contact, every department, every person. Security? Check the night shift logs. HR? I want every entry from the janitorial staff. Who was assigned to Building 7? Give me names. And someone find me everything about a worker named Grace. Brown hair, works nights, has a daughter. His team scrambled. Phones rang. Emails flew. Databases opened. Lily watched him with wide, hopeful eyes, as if Daniel was the only adult left in the world who could hold it together. Minutes felt like hours until a call came in from maintenance that a hesitant voice said, "Sir, Grace has been cleaning our buildings for years. Every week, but we never had direct contact with you. She never reported issues." Daniel froze. For years, she had worked in the shadows of the empire he built. The hallways, offices, and lounges he walked through daily, and he never even knew her name. Another voice came through, tense. "Sir, there's something else. Grace didn't clock out last night." Daniel felt a coldness sharper than the blizzard outside. "She didn't leave?" he asked. "No, sir. System shows her last location was the tech campus, Building C. After 1:14 a.m., she disappeared from the logs." Lily's eyes filled instantly. "Is she hurt?" she whispered. Daniel didn't answer, because fear was creeping up his own spine. The blizzard drive within minutes. Daniel had grabbed his coat, his keys, and gently taken Lily's hand. "Stay close to me," he said. "We're going to find your mom together." The streets were coated in thick ice, wind howling across the windshield as he drove down the hill toward his vast tech campus. Buildings glowing under the snow like metallic giants. T every turn. Lily whispered, "Mama, please be okay." Daniel gripped the steering wheel tighter. For the first time in years, he prayed. The tech campus, silence and darkness that entered through the employee entrance. The building was too quiet, the kind of quiet that told a story no one wanted to hear. Lily held Daniel's hand tighter as they passed rows of empty desks. They headed toward the service hallway, then down a staircase into the basement maintenance level. The lights flickered, the air was cold. Daniel pushed open the locker room door, and Lily gasped at Grace. She lay on the tile floor beside her cleaning cart, still, pale, her breathing faint, shallow. "Mommy!" Lily cried, running forward. Daniel swept in and caught her before she reached the cold floor. "Let me check first," he whispered. He knelt beside Grace, his heart hammered. Not from fear for himself, but for the little girl clinging to his sleeve. He touched Grace's hand. It was freezing. "She's alive," Daniel breathed, feeling the faint pulse. "But she's been here too long." And without hesitation, without thinking of dignity or status, the billionaire slid his arms under her body and lifted her. Grace felt weightless, too weightless. As he carried her out, Lily walked beside him, wiping tears with her sleeve. Daniel whispered under his breath, "Hold on, Grace, please hold on." The race against time, he drove like a man possessed, one arm steering, the other reaching back to reassure Lily. The hospital entrance. Nurses rushed forward, taking Grace from his arms onto a stretcher. Lily cried out, "Mommy," but Daniel scooped her up gently. "You're not alone," he whispered. "I'm right here." For hours, they waited in a small, cold hospital room. Daniel sat with Lily curled in his lap, staring at the floor, replaying everything he'd built and everything he'd ignored. Workers like Grace, invisible people, exhausted people, people who kept the lights on in his empire, and he had never looked at them. Grace stabilizes. A doctor finally stepped inside. She's stable. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and early hypothermia, but she's going to make it. Lily burst into tears, the relieved, trembling kind that pulls the soul back into the body. Daniel felt his chest unclench for the first time that night. When they were allowed into the recovery room, Lily held her mother's hand and whispered, "I found help, Mama." Just like you said. Grace opened her eyes weakly and saw Daniel. Recognition flickered. She had seen him before, in pictures on the walls of the campus she cleaned. "Mr. Rivers?" she rasped. Why are you here?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Because," he said quietly, "you work for me, and I failed you. That I should have known your name, that I should have known you didn't go home." He looked at Lily, then back at Grace. "This will never happen again. Not to you. Not to anyone who works for me." It wasn't a promise. That it was an awakening. The night had changed him, and somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of the journey Lily was going to lead him into. Hospitals were supposed to feel safe, but when Grace opened her eyes to the beeping machines and the sterile white ceiling, the first thing she felt wasn't safety. It was fear. Her voice came out fragile, dry. "Lily? Where's Lily?" A small hand slipped into hers. Her daughter climbed onto the bed, eyes still swollen from crying. "I'm here, Mama," Lily whispered. Grace exhaled, a long, trembling exhale that seemed to release half the pain she held. But then she noticed another figure in the room. Daniel Rivers, the billionaire, the man whose building she'd been cleaning for years without him ever knowing she existed. Grace flinched, instinctively pulling her blanket up. "Yes, sir." "I'm sorry," she said quickly, terrified. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I swear I'll go back to work as soon as—" Daniel held up a hand, gentle but firm. "Grace," he said softly, "no one is firing you. You're safe now." Her eyes filled instantly, because women like Grace didn't get reassurances. They got warnings, threats, cut hours, never kindness. "The truth comes out," Grace tried to sit up, but her body protested. "I only fainted because I've been working a lot." She swallowed hard. "A couple extra shifts. Maybe 3. But I can handle how many hours, Grace? Daniel asked quietly. She hesitated. Lily squeezed her hand. Please, Daniel added. I need you to be honest. Not for me, for you. Grace broke. Her voice cracked as months of exhaustion spilled out. 70. Sometimes 80 hours a week. No health insurance. No sick days. Double shifts when someone didn't show up. Night shifts every night. She looked at her daughter, shame burning her throat. I didn't want Lily to go without. Rent went up again, and no one else would take the extra hours. So I just did it. Daniel felt something inside him snap. The kind of break that doesn't hurt, the kind that wakes a man. He sat down slowly at the edge of the bed. Grace, I am so sorry. His voice was quiet but honest. I built a company so big, I stopped seeing the people holding it together. That ends today. Grace blinked, confused. What do you mean? Daniel took a breath, and a lifetime of blind privilege exhaled out of him. The new policies by noon. Daniel had already sent memos, called emergency meetings, and made decisions people had begged him to consider for years. But now they weren't decisions. They were promises. From today forward, he said, standing at Grace's bedside, every contract worker in my company gets better pay, full health benefits, safety checks, limits on weekly hours, mandatory rest days, and proper supervision that ensures this never happens again. Grace stared at him as if she were seeing a stranger. They're doing that? Because of me? No, Daniel whispered. Because of Lily. Because she walked through a blizzard to save you. And because you deserve this long before today. Lily leaned into her mother's side, smiling for the first time in days. Grace began to cry. Quietly, gratefully, painfully, a new beginning for Grace. Daniel placed a folder on the bedside table. Your hospital bills are covered, he said calmly. Your rent for the next 6 months, covered. And when you're ready to work again, he hesitated, almost nervous. I'd like you to take a new position. Administrative assistant. Day shifts only. Better pay. Better hours. Grace's eyes widened. Me? But I don't. I've never. You're smart, Daniel said. You're organized. You held an entire building together alone for years. And you deserve a job that lets you come home to your daughter at night. Lily hugged her mother's arm. Say yes, Mama. Grace nodded through tears. Daniel visits their world 2 days later. When Grace was strong enough to walk, Daniel drove them home. Lily insisted on showing him everything. Proudly, joyfully. This is my bed. And here's Mama's coffee mug. And this is Mr. Rabbit. He's really brave. Daniel stepped into their small, dim apartment that IT was clean. Ridiculously clean. The touch of a woman who worked in janitorial silence. But it was also fragile, that secondhand furniture, that a fridge with more empty shelves than full ones, that a small drawing on the wall of a woman and a little girl standing under a rainbow. Grace flushed, embarrassed. I know it's not much, but Daniel shook his head. It's home, he said, and it's full of love. That's more than most mansions have. Grace didn't know what to say. Lily didn't hesitate. She ran forward and wrapped her tiny arms around Daniel's waist. Thank you for saving my mama. Daniel froze as the hug tightened. He didn't remember the last time anyone small and fragile had hugged him like that. Something warm, almost unfamiliar, flickered in his chest, that a connection at the beginning. Something he didn't understand yet, but knew he didn't want to lose. And as he looked at Grace, tired but smiling faintly for the first time, Daniel realized this wasn't charity. This wasn't obligation. This was the start of something that would change all three of them forever. Grace returned to work 3 weeks later. But this time, she wasn't entering a building as a ghost in a janitor's uniform. She walked through the lobby wearing a soft blue blouse, hair combed neatly, her ID badge clipped proudly to her collar. Grace Williams, administrative assistant. She looked lighter, brighter, almost like a woman rediscovering her own reflection. Daniel had arranged for her training, her workspace, even her schedule. But what he didn't expect was how quickly she would bloom. She organized meetings with precision, solved problems before anyone noticed them. She learned systems, codes, software, and everyone started saying the same thing. How do we not know she had this talent? Grace only smiled and answered softly. Sometimes people don't shine until someone gives them a little light. And Daniel, he was that light. But he didn't realize Grace was becoming light to him too. Meanwhile, Lily Blossom Grace knew hours meant Lily had mornings again, breakfast again, smiles again. Her teacher emailed, Lily is happier, participating, thriving. She drew pictures of 3 people now, herself, her mama, and Daniel. When he visited their apartment, she'd beam at him and say, Daniel, look, I saved you the good cookie. Or, you're my friend now. Mama says adults need friends too. Daniel always laughed, but the truth was, no one had called him a friend in a long time. He became part of their life. It began slowly at a cup of coffee delivered by Grace when she arrived to work, that a small good morning note he'd leave on her desk in return. Then Lily started inviting him to things. Daniel, can you come to my school picnic? Daniel, can we build gingerbread houses? Daniel, can we watch movies with the talking snowman? And somehow, the billionaire with the $1,000 suits found himself, sitting in tiny kindergarten chairs, drinking juice from cartoon cups, laughing as gingerbread houses collapsed into sugary rubble, helping Lily glue googly eyes on a construction paper snowman. It felt ridiculous. Imperfect, Grace watched him with soft eyes she tried to hide. Daniel watched her with a heart he no longer hid at all. Personal truths began to unfold the more time they spent together, the easier it became to talk about things that weren't just work. One evening, after dropping Lily at a school rehearsal, they ended up driving aimlessly through the quiet, warm neighborhoods of Seattle. The sky was a soft lavender, and jazz hummed gently through the car speakers. Grace glanced at him. You seem tired today. Daniel let out a breath he rarely allowed anyone to hear. I spent years building empires, he said quietly. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I forgot how to build a life. Grace didn't interrupt. She just listened, really listened. I always thought love would distract me, he continued. So I chose work. Every time, every day, every year. He turned to her. And now I regret it. Grace's fingers curled at her lap, that a part of her, the part that had suffered, struggled, survived, felt unworthy of the man sitting beside her. But another part, the part touched by his kindness, whispered the truth. I feel something too. Her voice trembled, but the honesty did not. Not because you helped us, not because you're you, but because when you're with Lily, you look like the kind of man the world forgot to make. That sentence landed deeper than she expected. Daniel pulled the car to a slow stop beside a quiet park. Streetlights glowed gold on the windshield. He looked at her, really looked. Grace, he whispered. May I? Yes, she breathed. And then it happened. Their first kiss, soft, gentle, tender, like 2 people discovering warmth in a world that had offered them too much cold. And in the back seat, completely oblivious, Lily twirled with her stuffed rabbit, humming jazz from the radio, her little dance, becoming the soundtrack to a moment 2 lonely hearts had waited a lifetime for. Lily's question Grace and Daniel pulled apart when Lily hopped into the front seat, cheeks glowing from practice. Why are you 2 smiling like that? She asked suspiciously. Grace stuttered. Daniel coughed. Lily squinted at them both, then gasped dramatically. Oh, I know. She clapped her hands, eyes sparkling. Does this mean Daniel can be my daddy now? Grace froze that Daniel's heart flipped. The world felt suddenly fragile and precious. Lily hugged both of them at once, giggling. I always wanted a daddy. And you already come to my school and eat cookies and fix my crayons. That's what daddies do. Grace's eyes glistened. Daniel swallowed hard. Overwhelmed, he didn't answer her. Not yet. But the truth was already there, growing, rooting, blooming quietly in all 3 of their hearts. This wasn't just a slow falling in love. It was the beginning of a family neither Grace nor Daniel ever believed they deserved, and the one Lily had unknowingly been guiding them toward all along. Spring arrived quietly in Seattle. The storms had passed. The snow that once terrified Lily melted into streams that fed blooming cherry trees along the sidewalks. And life, gentle, steady life, grew with the season. Grace walked into the tech campus each morning with confidence she never knew and no longer invisible, and no longer exhausted, and no longer afraid. Her desk moved from the corner to a window. Her responsibilities doubled, not because she was overwhelmed, but because she excelled. When Daniel promoted her to operations coordinator. The entire floor clapped. Grace blushed so deeply that Daniel couldn't help smiling from across the room. Lily thrived too. She made friends, got gold stars, won a Kindest Heart badge, and insisted on bringing Daniel to every school event. Because he claps the loudest, she would whisper. And Daniel, well, he was different too. The billionaire who once hid behind walls of money and scheduled charts now knelt to tie kindergarten shoelaces, attended craft fairs, and left early for meetings to make it to school plays. His employees noticed, his board noticed. The whole company shifted because he had shifted. More humanity, more listening, more heart. All because one little girl had marched through a blizzard to his door. Cary Park at sunset on a warm, pink-tinted evening. Daniel drove Grace to Cary Park, high above the city. Seattle glowed beneath them, skyscrapers shimmering. The Space Needle shining like a lantern in the dusk. Grace tightened her fingers around Daniel's hand. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. He took a breath, a long, emotional one. "I used to come here," Daniel said. "When I felt lost, I'd look at the city and wonder why I felt so empty, even when I had everything." He turned to her, and she saw the truth in his eyes. "But now," he whispered, "I look at the city, and all I can think is how grateful I am that a little girl walked into my life." Grace's breath caught. Daniel stepped in front of her. "I thought I saved you, Grace." A small, humbled smile. "But you saved me. You and Lily gave me a life I didn't know I was missing." Grace felt tears rising. Her heart knew what was coming, but still wasn't prepared for the moment. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and knelt. The city stretched behind them. The sunset wrapped them in gold, and Daniel's voice trembled as he spoke. "Grace Williams, will you marry me?" Her hand flew to her mouth. "Yes," she choked immediately. Through tears, through joy, through a lifetime of struggle, suddenly finding peace. "Yes, Daniel. 1,000 times yes. We get to keep him forever." When they told Lily, she didn't react like a normal child. She screeched. Then she sprinted in circles, arms waving like a tiny helicopter. And finally, she launched herself into Daniel's arms and yelled, "We get to keep him forever." Daniel laughed, truly laughed, the kind that echoed from the heart he thought had been lost years ago. Grace watched them with quiet joy, her soul settling into a calm she had never known. The small spring wedding, they chose something simple, intimate, meaningful. Just close friends, a few coworkers, some flowers Lily picked from their neighborhood, and vows said beneath a cluster of cherry blossoms. Grace walked down the grassy aisle in a soft, elegant dress. Nothing extravagant, nothing loud. Daniel looked at her like she was the missing moment his life had waited for. Their vows weren't fancy. They were honest. Grace promised safety, kindness, patience. Daniel promised presence, love, and to never overlook the humanity of the people around him again. Lily, wearing a flower crown, stood proudly between them, holding both their hands. When Daniel kissed Grace, Lily covered her eyes dramatically. She said, then whispered, "Do it again." Final scene. The family formed by snow months later. Rain tapped softly on the windows of the home that once belonged to only Daniel. A home that used to echo with silence. Now it was warm, lived in, filled with soft laughter, mismatched mugs, and Lily's drawings taped to the fridge. Daniel sat on the couch with Grace curled against his side. Lily lay across their laps with a book, her fingers tangled with theirs outside. The gentle Seattle rain fell like a blessing. Inside, a family not born by blood, but by courage, compassion, and a snowstorm that changed 3 lives. Held each other close. And for the first time ever, the once empty house felt exactly like what Lily whispered before falling asleep. Home. Sometimes the coldest storms carry the warmest miracles. That a little girl's courage, a mother's sacrifice, a man who thought he had everything, until he discovered what truly mattered. Because when we open our hearts to help someone else, we often discover that we were the ones who needed saving all along.